growth rarely comes from just complete and ongoing success and exuberance and mountaintop experiences. Growth comes when we look out and see something that God may be putting before us, but it can just be a circumstance that is not good too, and we are willing to sacrifice, or whether we're pulled into that sacrifice.
Yeah.
When we sustain in all the ways that we can be sustained, but primarily through our faith in Him, man, that's when the stretching comes. That's when those foundations get stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
And it's rarely going to come when the success and the more and all of the exuberance and those mountaintop experiences are just one right after the other. It's a dangerous place to always be on top.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Persisting in Purpose. Today, I'm honored to have Richard Newton here with me. Richard is someone that I got to meet at a Friday morning meetup they call Rise and Grind. There's been multiple guys who've been on some of the shows that I've done who are a part of that.
Yep.
And I remember I went to a nonprofit function for Sunika.
Okay.
And that was still early on when I didn't know too many people that well. And my wife and I came over and saw you. We came up and you just greeted us with true Southern hospitality, invited us into the family and made us feel welcome. But the short time I've gotten to know you, I've just loved seeing your heart for other men, seeing your heart for stewardship and being faithful.
Thank you.
And so, Richard is the regional director for National Christian Foundation and a senior gift advisor. Is that correct? And you do that primarily on the eastern side of North Carolina,
That's correct.
RDU out through the coast. And so I just wanted to start by, for those who don't know NCF, National Christian Foundation, tell me a little bit about it and what your role is with this organization.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. And likewise, it's been a joy to welcome you into our midst. And the good thing about our Friday morning time, as you're already learning, is it's a mixed bag. We all come. It's a very balanced place, and we put who we think we are and might want to be at the table, and just forget about it, and then we just share and grow a lot with each other. So it's thank you. You honor me for allowing me to be here. National Christian Foundation. We are the largest faith-based, Christian-based provider of something called a donor-advised fund. And a donor-advised fund is a pretty simple tool under the Internal Revenue Service where people can put money into what I like to call a charitable bank account.
Okay.
Fully charitable deduction once money or assets go into it. So you can give into it. You can grow the assets through investments. And then the really, really fun part is that you get to grant those dollars back out to the ministries and nonprofits that you are passionate about.
Okay.
And so it really is a really simple tool, but it has profound impact because of what a person or family, and we serve, Greg, we serve business owners, we serve CEOs, we serve investors, we serve everyday people that are ministry minded and want an efficient, focused way to center their generosity.
Yeah.
And again, our biggest focus is kind of on the backside, helping people figure out the organizations that they want to make their grants to. So it's a fun work that I get to do, and we'll talk about some of the other parts of it. But that's who NCF is. We've been around for 43 years across the country, where I serve as a part of the NCF Carolinas affiliate, and we got an office in Raleigh, where me and my teammate Catherine Williams work. And then we've got an office in Charlotte and an office in down in Charleston, South Carolina. And if the Lord allows it, we hope that we would even have an office in Greenville, South Carolina, upstate South Carolina. So we cover the two Carolinas and serve thousands of givers in that two-state region and helping to serve in their generosity.
Yeah. So what does your role look like? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis?
Day-to-day, as a relationship manager, my primary job is to meet with givers and prospective givers and help them consider what they're passionate about, what they're thinking about, what they may be trying to lean into, and help them consider that, just what that looks like, what excites them about it, where they may be confused.
Yeah.
We call it helping them figure out a giving strategy. And then we get just a tad bit transactional in that we try to think together what are some of the best, most efficient, tax-wise ways to make that generosity come together. When I do my job well, I'm helping a family or an individual business owner, whatever the characteristic that describes them. I'm helping them to merge their heart and their relationship and their resources for the good of the kingdom and biblical generosity. So that's what I do. And it's got, every day, Greg's got a little bit of a different feel to it because everybody's situation is different.
Yeah.
There's some things we do every day, helping people make gifts in, grants out, figuring out an investment situation. But every situation that comes to us can have some difference. And so it's really, I'll probably say the word relationship a lot in our conversation, because ultimately that's what NCF hopes we get to have with every one of our givers at some level as a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super important, especially when it comes to anything surrounding money. Relationship is crucial.
It's a big, big deal.
So you had this quote on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You said, you see your role as being a patron for good through biblical generosity. Yeah. So I'd love for you to unpack that statement just a little bit. A patron for good.
Yeah. When I think of the word patron, largely I think of someone that is a supporter. But I think patron goes a little bit deeper in that it is someone that has such a heart for something that their support is a little more than just cursory, I'm going to make a small donation, or I'm going to be supportive of something in a small way. Patron is someone that in biblical terms, I think you would say that they have a heart to give their time, their talent, which is their abilities, and then their treasure, their resources.
Right.
And so a patron, I think, is one that commits to doing that with kind of all of who they are. And so in my role, I get to look at and help families consider the good that they want to accomplish through their biblical generosity. And so I feel like every day I've got this opportunity to support, be a patron of the good that families want to accomplish. And in the role that I serve in, we really look at the three primary constituents that we deal with every day, and that's our givers first, and then the advisors and other influencers that affect their decision, but a financial, legal, tax advisors are a big part of that, and then the ministries that they have a passion about. And so the job that I get to do is happening at its best. Then we're going to get a chance to understand the heart of a giver, hopefully be connected and maybe even in some partnership already with the ministries that they have a passion for. and then working with their advisors to pull all of that together in the most tax-wise and efficient way. And so that patronage is where I get to put all of the resources that I have in my skill set and in the vocational calling that I've got in for good.
Yeah. So the people that, these relationships that you have, these continual donors who are giving into this, you have a unique nonprofit in that it's investing in nonprofits.
Correct. That's a very good way to put it, by the way.
And so, from a pure nonprofit standpoint, so let's just say a water charity.
Okay.
They are pursuing donors.
Correct.
Outside of like NCF. And oftentimes, I have some people that we've supported through Campus Crusade or different ministries on a continual basis. And on the relational side, it started with close relationship.
Right.
And now the communication is basically only when they want donations.
Right.
And so I think from a fundraising side where you have to bring in your own funds, like on a Campus Crusade, or an individual nonprofit that has one mission, but they're trying to get recurring. It's easy for that relationship to be shifted towards just bringing in the resources.
Right.
So from your perspective, especially because you guys have a different side of it where it's like the people who are coming and doing this are wanting to steward their resources well and make sure it's going in the right places.
Correct. So
how do you make sure that it stays relationship first and not just all about the money?
And that is honestly one of the better questions I've ever had. Let me, I'm going to dig in a little bit into that. Over the years, we at NCF have been around a long time, have served literally thousands and thousands of givers across the country and the world.
Yeah.
Even. And so we realize that there are kind of two different types of givers that exist. There are what we call gift makers.
Okay.
They are people that they are really decided about their giving, where they want their ministry, biblical generosity dollars to go.
Yeah.
They are focused. They love the tool of a donor advised fund, and they use that incredibly well. They just don't need nor necessarily desire a high level of relationship because they might use their relationship capital, if you would, which I think a relationship has a capital essence to it, especially when it's used wisely. And so they don't necessarily need us to be that heavier relationship-minded person, although there are a number of our gift maker givers that we have deep relationships with, just because, again, when you do something like this long enough, and I've been in and around NCF locally for going on 13 years now. So, and just been in the Raleigh community. I was born and raised here. So I've been here a while. And so they're good relationships, but so the relationship takes on a different, it's a little, maybe even you would say a little bit more transactional. The fact of being good at what we do technically has a higher level of importance to some people. And then there's our journey takers.
Okay.
There are givers that really value the high level relational touch that all of their ministry organizations have. And NCF is a 501c3. We're a ministry. We just do a unique work of, we're a grant-making ministry foundation, and we're very much like a business on a ministry platform. And so we get to relate to them in a unique way because we come in as a partner with what they're doing with their financial capital that is now their charitable capital. Sometimes we get asked to find out about a ministry. Sometimes we get asked to actually engage with them in partnership to just not only get the grant done, but maybe engage other givers. You actually had somebody on your podcast not long ago, Keith, around foster care.
Right.
And that has had some momentum around it in a really cool way because of some collaborative work that he and one of the organizations that he's a partner with is doing. So again, a journey taker is someone that is their giving is a very active part of their life, and they like a more of a partnership relationship. So I probably rambled on answering your question, but
that's helpful to put those in different buckets and get an understanding of how different people perceive. Because, I can probably tell that I'm more on the journey maker side.
Okay.
And so maybe that's why the relational side
is so important to you.
Yeah. You want people, you want to know that they actually care about you as well.
Right.
Which is a fascinating thing. So I love what you said. So taking a little step back, before you were doing this, what was your primary focus? What was the business you were doing?
Great question. Because when I look back 40 plus years ago and I see what God was doing and how he was preparing me, it was just fun to see his hand in it all. I went to Campbell University. It's important to go back kind of somewhat to the beginning.
Yeah.
I went to Campbell University because I just fell in love with the school. I went down there on a kind of a fluke campus visit back in the very early 80s, 1981 to be exact, and with my best friend at the time. And we went down there, looked at the school, and he didn't care about it, but I fell in love with the place. Just a small campus, Harnett County, nothing special about it. Had a weird mascot, the Campbell Camels, but we love it. And so I decided to go to college there. When I went there, I thought I was going to be a teacher. I was going to major in education. And God's hand was moving even then. I was taking an education course under a great author and education professor, a guy by the name of Clyde Edgerton. And I was about halfway through the course, and I was doing okay, but he called me up to his desk one day after class, and he said, he asked me to tell him my story, why I was wanting to be a teacher, why I was majoring in education. And I told him, and he looked at me and he said, "Richard, you're not going to be a teacher. This is not what you're wired for." He said, "You're doing fine in class." I could kind of feel the blood drain from my head because I was like, okay, didn't know what. He said, I know what a teacher looks like in class, and I hear them, and said, "You're just not wired to be a teacher, but there's something that needs your gifts more than this classroom does." So I went, explored, went to the sweet Peggy Lawrence over in the Campbell University Placement Department, and she told me about this unique major that only Campbell has still today, trust management. It's now called Trust and Wealth Management. But at the time, it was the only trust management major in the world.
Really?
They were educating college students to be a trust officer at a bank. That was what you got educated to do. It was part law, it was part business, and here's the key. It was heavy on relationships. She did a little 1981 version, it was 82 by then, version of an assessment, and she said, "You ought to think about this trust major." And because I had expressed an interest in business and law, and she said, "Richard, you like to talk to people." And she said, "You ought to major in that." And so I did. So today, 41 years later, I still use my trust degree every day. NCF is a charitable trust on a foundation platform. As I saw that journey, and then when my background just literally prepared me uniquely, all during my trust journey, working at a bank and then leaving banking and doing private trust work, it's always been about helping people shepherd and steward their relationships, their resources, and as I like to say, their relationships to their resources, and bringing that together. And so it's been a almost a discipleship journey to just get to the place of where I do this today. If you had told me 41 years ago that I was going to be doing this, even 22 years ago when I left banking, I'd have probably said, no, I can't really imagine that. And yet the Lord had different. And so that's, here I am. But that thread of relationship building and management has always been a thread that's been a constant in my work and vocation.
So that teacher didn't give you a hint of what he thought it was. He's just like, this ain't it.
This ain't it. I do love what he said, is that you've got gifts that are needed elsewhere other than in the classroom. And that was kind of that was my encouragement.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that, like, hanging out with guys that are younger than me on Friday morning and throughout, I love getting to work with the young families that come to NCF, because helping people discover what their gifts are and being purposeful about those gifts is a gift. And I mean, and when we discover that, then our work becomes pleasurable, our service becomes pleasurable, and even all of our relationships become deeper because we can see a purpose in them.
Yeah, that's great. So when you are talking to people who are on the early side of their generosity journey, knowing that money can be a touchy subject,
yes,
how do you approach educating and helping people start to navigate their generosity journey?
You are right. Money can be it's a difficult subject for some. It is in marriage. It's one of the top things. It causes conflict. It's stress. You look at depression and stress. It's just a big factor. And I think the scriptures, God's word, by most estimations, well over 2,000 verses about money and finances and business in it. So it's an important subject. Unfortunately, in today's society, global even, but right here in the United States and locally everywhere, the definition and the pursuit of more is just of profound importance. I mean, the way that can captivate people is a really, really big thing, and even a dangerous thing. We could have a whole nother podcast on that alone. But so a lot of what we will talk about with early families is just helping them to identify, first and foremost, just that, especially for young believers, is this ownership piece. Is that where is it that the good of our resources and the skills to derive it, the thought to be able to invent something, the creativity to be able to design something, where does that come from? It comes from the Lord. And so we use the language that God owns it all. And that sounds good, but in generosity getting rooted in our lives, understanding just what that means and what it means to say, God, you gave me everything. So now what do I do to steward that? So it's not, that's why we talk so much about it's not just a transaction, it's a transformative process. So one of the things I like to do especially when I get a chance to lead a journey of generosity that's primarily younger couples or even younger singles that are in fact, this year I had the joy of doing two college senior short jogs, an evening, and it was just profound. And a large part of what I do is it give them the chance to just tell about the examples of generosity that they saw. And most of them talk about the kind of the systematic process that they saw their parents or grandparents, a lot of grandparents, exhibit in terms of just systematically giving and being devoted to that. But the next thing they talked about was examples of sacrifice, seeing someone in need and caring for that person in need. I love when I hear the stories about people say, well, our table seemed to always have extra people at it because mom and dad always invited people in. And so understanding, I think, at an early age that it's not all yours to just spend on yourself.
Right.
And so that release, that surrender as another word. And I tell people, you're just getting started. And so, yes, you do want to, the old teaching we used to do, there's a box for savings, there's a box for giving, and a box for spending.
Right.
And so those principles are good at any age. And when you get those things embedded early and that commitment to stewardship and surrender, that's when it really gets good at an early age.
Yeah. Yeah. Training my young kids in doing those things, saving, giving, and spending. I think through, even it took a longer time in my own faith walk. Like I came to know the Lord from a young age,
right.
Raised in a Christian home. And I think for myself, and then for many other believers, like the idea of a tithe or even giving above a tithe, it's like a tax versus a blessing.
Right.
And when you do truly view money as God's,
right,
and you see this as an opportunity to give back, like one is just obedience.
Yep.
But like starting to realize the joy in giving. And one of those things for my wife and I, in our journey, when she started staying at home, we had kids, she was going to stay at home as a mom. She started feeling really detached from money. And she was like, I feel like I have to ask you for anything, even though it's like our money.
Right.
But the area that was painful that it was detached from was giving. And so we kind of talked through it, and God laid on our heart, like, hey, we're going to set aside 5% above the tithe for what we call Lord's work.
Yep.
And create a fund that enabled her, like if she walked into Walmart and someone needed diapers for their kid, like she didn't have to call me. She didn't have to worry about
just do it.
It's just go. And that's been one of the most life-giving things in our marriage is to be able to just bless people. But it was a journey to get there, right? It's not just right away you feel the freedom to do that.
I want to commend that, because I will see some people get stuck with the worry about how they perceive what they're not doing. And what I always say, well, number one, stop with that emotion, and just begin to do something more. And again, when I get the chance to really understand what their generosity looks like and just help them to see, and they usually have an advisor, and their advisor is saying to them, and good advisors actually love to talk about generosity with their givers as they're planning. and encourage it. We work with some just amazing faith-centered advisors that the generosity conversation is just as much a part of the financial planning process as your budget. I mean, literally, to be able to say, you can do this, now get excited about it, and increase increments. I've seen some young couples to where they would, one of the processes that they would do is when they'd start at, let's say, that tithe 10%. And every time they got raises on an annual basis or whenever they came in as a family and their income went up, that percentage increase that they got in their income, they applied it to their giving. So if they got a 10% increase, their giving increased by a tenth. So they did the math that way. I hope I did that math right. I've seen young couples giving 30+%.
Wow.
And part of that is in that stewardship journey, when you're fervent about your generosity, then it helps you to have a good vision about how much more is enough, identifying that place of what is enough. And look, that's a journey. That's been a journey for my wife and I. Yeah. It's a journey for a lot of people. We live, again, we said it earlier, we live in a culture that promotes more in a really big way. And so it's difficult, but I tell you, as I've seen it in our own life and as I've seen it in others, the joy and the freedom that comes by accepting less so you can do something more in a different way is an incredible joy to watch.
Yeah. I love that. That's so helpful. So you have the people and relationships that you're stewarding towards generosity, but you also have nonprofit partners that you guys are helping to give grants and funding through these resources.
Right.
You briefly mentioned that some people will say, hey, can you look into this thing that we're passionate about?
Right.
But what in general does it look like for NCF to find their strategic nonprofit partners?
That's a great, and let me just reframe this part of our conversation, because as a donor advised fund, we only consider charities that our donors advise. In other words, our donors recommend. So we don't actually actively go out and look for ministries and nonprofits to give to. They make the initial recommendation, and then our job is to go and just vet and just to make sure they are sound from a tax standpoint, financially and legally, and that they're in alignment with biblical principles and doing good things. And that can be both Christian nonprofits, and it can also be secular nonprofits that are, I like to say, not every nonprofit doing amazing things has a fish sign on their business card. And so that's our job. What does happen, Greg, that's a lot of fun, is as those partnerships over the years have grown, and we notice that a big number of our givers have a passion about one particular thing, then that obviously means that our partnership with that ministry is going to grow. And so they're getting lots of grant checks from NCF, and the grant check actually comes from the National Christian Foundation, even though unless a giver makes an anonymous grant, the ministry is going to, or nonprofit is going to know who the gift came from, even though it's legally and technically from the National Christian Foundation. That was way getting in the weeds, I realize.
No, that's helpful.
When there's that much give and take, we really grow in those. So we really do have some deep strategic partnerships locally. Every year, we're kind of looking and trying to identify that group of nonprofits that our givers, a big number, have given larger sums of money to, and they're doing great work. And we look at that, in the state and the country as well. So we really do have some amazing nonprofits that we have strategic partnerships. And what I would say is that, and maybe this is a little coaching for people that'll watch this podcast, that those nonprofits are ones that are doing really identifiable, they're meeting identifiable needs in their internationally, nationally, statewide, or locally. They've got a good team. They're well led. They're sustainable financially. They've got a good vision of where they want to go. And they are great communicators and good relationship managers in their own right with their donor base and their people that serve them. And so the model is really always very consistent. When we see a nonprofit that is really, we see a lot of people that are passionate about them.
So how do you approach then, since it is donor advised, when a nonprofit approaches you guys? I'm guessing that happens.
It does.
How do you guys approach that?
Well, good question. Great question, in fact. And so maybe I'm probably going to give a little bit of a message again if nonprofits see this. Because we don't make any grant recommendations ourselves, we also we don't have a decision, and so them coming to us is not necessarily, we can't give them any money. And so, but again, when those strategic nonprofits that we have deep relationships with, we do have a lot of givers. It's good for us to understand where they are going as a nonprofit. We go to a lot of annual fundraiser kind of banquets. We tend to go to the ones that we do see our givers most supportive of. But we do because it helps us for us to understand better what is going on in the community, makes us, in the end, relationally able to benefit and serve our givers. If I'm in a meeting with someone that has given regularly to a particular ministry, and because I'm out in the community understanding what is happening, then I might be able to share with them something. Again, I'm not making a recommendation, but I'm just making them aware. But I think an awareness of what's going on in our community, it's incumbent upon me, and Catherine as well. She's excellent at doing the same thing, just a tremendous teammate. For us both to know what's going on out in the community makes us be able to do our jobs a lot easier and better.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that's a tricky sort of thing to navigate at times.
It is.
Trying to educate people both on the donor side and the nonprofit side about how you approach things. Because the truth is, with especially nonprofits that truly are living for a purpose, right?
Right.
Like there's some nonprofits that aren't necessarily like, how do we make money but also make impact?
Right.
When it's purpose driven, you're often thinking like, how do we fund this purpose? And there's a lot of challenge in that, of knowing how do we continue to fund and do this, because any visionary, whether entrepreneur or nonprofit leader, is thinking bigger than what they can do themselves.
One of the things that this might be the closest thing I do to a shameless plug about NCF is that we have one of the highest grant out rates of any donor advised fund in the world. Which what I mean by that is, for every dollar that comes in to a donor advised fund at NCF, a very high rate of that, above 50% of that, will go out within the first year or just a little bit more. So it's in other words, money flows in and out. Some does sit and grow because people are intentional. An individual could have a particular asset that they did very well in, whether it be a business, a piece of real estate, a marketable security, and they are very generously inclined. And so they want to give a big portion of that. And they may want to give it, they get a lot of tax advantage from that type of a gift. And they may want to not give it all away in that first year. I've seen people make gifts that they've been able to say, hey, this is going to be our giving, our granting for the next 5 years, 10 years even, in some gift sizes. And so there's going to be some assets that are going to stay in funds.
Yeah.
But we do have a very high grant out rate. So I always encourage people, just go to the NCF Giving website.
Yeah.
And we got a treasure trove of information. And we talk about givers. One of our favorite things to do is talk about giver journeys. And in that, we may talk about a specific cause that they're giving to and just how they got inspired by that, because those giver stories help coach other givers. Right. And it's a wonderful thing. And in fact, we have a tool that comes out on Saturday mornings called the Saturday 7 email. And it's a curated email of 7 articles or interviews or other media connections around a specific subject. And it's a beautiful thing. It comes at 7:00 on Saturday mornings, just like clockwork. And it's a beautiful way, because we want people to give their money away, which is kind of an upside down business model, but we're faithful to that, and we're going to continue to rally around that process.
Right. And so the average person thinks about donating, like from a personal standpoint, they're giving a tax deductible gift to a nonprofit.
Correct.
Through looking through the website and trying to get a better understanding of NCF, I've seen that there's different strategies as a business. And so I know we could be getting into the weeds here, and we'll try not to dive too far, but
we won't get confusing.
Imagine a Christian entrepreneur is listening to this episode. If they were trying to be creative with taking advantage of tax strategy,
right,
but also being generous with their resource as a business, what can that look like?
I'm going to quickly go through the 3 ways that looks like.
Yeah.
Most biz entrepreneurs are going to understand their tax situation pretty well. Hopefully they've got a good CPA, and the CPA is able to coach them on how much they are able to give just to be able to affect their tax situation. So just giving from the earnings, once the cash has already come in, will be taxed, but it can really help drive. Even that, as simple as that, can be very, very beneficial. One of the funnest times of the year for me and Catherine in our office is right at year end, when so many entrepreneurs and business owners are meeting with their CPA right there in the last few weeks of the year. And they'll call us and say, hey, Richard, I need to get you a check, or I need to wire the money, or I need to send it in an electronic format in some way. And I mean, sometimes we'll get that call on the 30th, and they've got to get it in by the next day, the 31st. Yeah. And so we love that time of the season, because that's when we get to be really in some of the best service to an entrepreneur. Then there's a way to just look at that business and say, well, if God owns that business, right, then we're going to give him some of the legal title to it. And there's 2 different times that we see business owners do it. If they're already giving from the cash flow, once they get it from the company, we see businesses over a long period of time that the owner will actually give a small portion of the business on a regular basis, and NCF becomes a charitable shareholder with them in their own business. They continue to run their business. We just own the beneficial financial interest, and so that gives them a charitable deduction, and it also lowers dramatically and maybe completely in some situations the taxation of those earnings. So it gets to be a real big deal. So if we own 10% of a company, in conjunction with the owner that's still running the company, and they get to the end of the year and their net profits are about to be distributed. Well, NCF on their behalf is going to get that 10%.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to do it tax-wise. And then there's the time when a business owner may transition the business, whether it be an outright sale, whether it be some transition within the company, whatever it may be. And they're considering some of these things. And in their consideration, they decide that whatever we're going to do, that we want a part of this company to be dedicated to the Lord, and that we're going to give that away. And so long before they ever begin the process of what the transition may look like, they make that decision to surrender that portion that they ultimately want to be used for the kingdom. And we help them structure a process, and it can be enormous tax savings. So when a transaction does happen, then NCF on their behalf, that portion will come to NCF, and then they will get the other portion, and the balance of what happens creates some really, really amazing benefit for them. So you can tell I got in the weeds a little bit, but we do a lot of conversation, and we hope helpful planning with their advisors and them to consider what their business is a great asset, their real estate, lots of different things that we've helped families give away.
Yeah. I think that's always helpful. The common and silly phrase, you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely.
And so I think there's a lot of us, especially in the entrepreneurial realm, where you're just keeping your business going. You don't necessarily understand all these different ways to approach it. Especially if it's someone who has their hand in everything. If they're doing their taxes, if they're doing their finances, it's hard to know how to be strategic about it. So I love helping people understand. And for myself as well.
It's fun to get in that car. And I love when we get the chance to get with someone early, even before their company is turning a profit, and know that they want to dedicate a portion of that. They want to surrender. And sometimes I have to tell young entrepreneurs, don't surrender it too quick. Those early years, there was actually some benefit to that hard work, even from a tax perspective. So keep at it. There'll be a good time. Let's keep talking, and we'll figure it out at the right time.
On a different side of things, coming back to Scripture. Are there any scriptures that when you look back at your life, and it could be a current season that you're in or another season of your life, is there any scripture that you've cling to or still continue to cling to?
Yes, there are a couple. Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, and in that, just to paraphrase it, since then we've been raised up with Christ. Let us set our mind on the things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. And just that mind and heart posture as a believer, I think, is critical. I think it's, as I have seen in my own life, but also seen in this generosity vocation that I have, others that have just led lives that are continuously generous, then their mind and their heart is postured about their stuff, their life, their pursuits, their relationships in a way that is got an eternal view all the time. It's kind of like they've got one eye on what they're doing right here and one eye on that eternal perspective. And those Colossians verses that Paul sets out really help remind me. And then just in the vocational work that I do, I think one of the most incredible verses is found in Matthew. I'm gonna forget the address. It was where your treasure is.
There your heart.
That's where your heart is. I paraphrase that a little bit. Tim Keller, in a wonderful teaching that he did years ago before he went to be with the Lord, he talked about it in this way, kind of paraphrasing. It says, if you want to see where somebody's heart, see what somebody's heart is close to, look at their pocketbook and see where they're spending their money. He said, so regularly I look at what is it that I have no trouble spending money on.
Yeah.
And I evaluate, how am I doing with that? Am I being wasteful? But that's a big thing. It's just checking the heart posture, the motive of what we're doing with our money. And that can be an ouch sometimes.
Absolutely.
I mean, a big ouch. So though there's a lot of verses in the scripture. Galatians 2:20 is a favorite, but we could spend a lot of time. But those are two that when I think about my work, I try to always keep my hands around.
Yeah, it's so helpful to stay rooted in those scriptures.
Yes,
to
absolutely.
come back to them time and time again. That's something I want to do better at, is clinging to his word. And
trust me, it'll serve you well. I have one from Romans 8, an early memorization of the 8th chapter of the book of Romans. Impacts my life. There are not many weeks that go by that I don't think about. Especially those first few verses. There's therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, and just leaning in and on that, and so yeah, there's a lot of treasure in things like that. God's word's got a lot of it's got a lot of practical, just wisdom.
Yeah.
That if we'll stay in it long enough, and let it, and not just use it, but actually live it and let it rest in our hearts, then we begin. That's how we gain wisdom from it. And I commend that process of just staying in the word and letting it be a part of who you are.
Yeah. So one of the things that I find super important and impactful as we grow and mature is being retrospective, looking back, evaluating things that have happened in our lives. And so looking back specifically around generosity, and then if you have something else you'd like to say, I'd love to hear it. But going back to Richard at 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, what do you know now that you wish you could share with yourself a little bit younger?
I think that thing that I said earlier about the joy and the freedom by accepting being content with less stuff, less that's just mine to control, and seeing the freedom and the joy that comes when I take some of that more that I've got to surrender to him for good, that I vocationally now say that I'm a patron, get to be a patron of.
Yeah.
I wish I'd known that earlier. And it's one of the reasons that I love doing what I do so much with younger people.
Yeah.
Is that, and Greg, let me be incredibly, if I could shout one thing, and I know part of it is because that in the work that I do, I get a chance to be around a lot of people, but I see some amazing things in younger generations than me. I'm 63 years old, so I got a lot of generations below me in age, but I see some incredible things. And even though the actions may not be complete yet, what I see is a yearning. I see an openness. I see a concern. I see the questions coming from younger folks and younger generations. And so and is this all there is kind of one of the phrases.
Yeah.
But no, that's not all there is. And so I love that. And that is what I wish I was a younger person in a simpler age. We have more complicated, noisy society and culture that we live in today. And so it takes some work to settle the noise and just get quiet, more so than it did. And so I had a good environment and to be able to have done, but I wish I had enjoyed the joy and the freedom of slowing down the pursuit of more and just enjoying the release of that to things other than just even our own indulgences.
Can you pinpoint, and you don't have to answer this question if you don't want, but can you pinpoint one of those things of your pursuit of more that you would have done differently, knowing what you know now? Like what that practically looked like? Was it a bigger house than you needed? Was it a fancier car? Was it eating out a ton? Like what did that practically look like?
As a younger senior adult, I will tell you that just that tendency to personal comfort is one of those indulgences, just ease. Yes, more meals out, just the ease of things. And I actually saw this in something that a book that I love that I would commend. It's called Radical Wisdom by Reggie Campbell. It's something that I quote a lot. I'm in my second year of reading it through. I plan to do it until I'm no longer here and the Lord calls me home, because it's just good. I may memorize some of them by then, but it was talking about personal comfort, is how it's such a sneaky thing, because we like being comfortable. And so that would be one that I would say probably has been over a lifespan. In 2004, I left the corporate world of banking, and I made a big decision because I had been trying to climb that ladder.
Right.
And I realized the toll that climbing that ladder was taking on me and my family. And so as a result, the Lord just began to stir that in me. And so my wife and I together reached a decision that I was going to leave banking in that corporate world. And the odd thing was that I did not. Most people leave to go to a different job. I wasn't leaving the bank. I enjoyed the bank I was with. It was big, but I did enjoy the bank that I was with. I was having a good career. There was nothing wrong, but it was me in the job more than it was the job. And so I fought that. I had a season of that, just aggressively going for more. So I kind of did a radical thing. I just left with no job, with no underpinning. We were not. We had made provisions to go a season, but that's when the Lord did a lot of work that I had to change my just the way that I approached that pursuit of more, especially from a vocational standpoint. So not one particular thing other than that in modern day times, that personal comfort and being mindful of that, of how sneaky that one is in the pursuit of more.
Yeah.
Hope that answered that question.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's helpful for us to understand what that looks like. And, as someone who's a few years ahead of me, to also see, as you look back, where your heart was, how you worked through that. And I'm sure that was a tough transition to give up an upward trajectory, something that you were striving towards. But something I've learned in my short, almost 42 years on this earth is some of the biggest ways that God has moved in my heart was on the other side of surrender.
Oh.
And when I take a step
Completely
of surrendering a desire of mine, he meets me profoundly.
Yeah.
And it's still scary each time.
Right.
But he is good and faithful in and through all of it.
And we're stretched in those times too, Greg. It's a cliche almost, we say it, but growth rarely comes from just complete and ongoing success and exuberance and mountaintop experiences. Growth comes when we look out and see something that God may be putting before us, but it can just be a circumstance that is not good too, and we are willing to sacrifice, or whether we're pulled into that sacrifice.
Yeah.
When we sustain in all the ways that we can be sustained, but primarily through our faith in Him, then man, that's when the stretching comes. That's when those foundations get stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
And it's rarely going to come when the success and the more and all of the exuberance and those mountaintop experiences are just one right after the other. It's a dangerous place to always be on top.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in the midst of reading through this book called Leadership as an Identity by Crawford Loritz.
Yep. Great book.
And one of the things that was challenging to me, and I think I'm only like 3 or 4 chapters in, he was talking about, one, the importance and need for brokenness as a leader. But 2, the danger. So that side of when things are successful and all that is to, without even noticing it, think we don't need God. Like we start relying on our own talents and skills that God has already gifted us. And the other dangerous side of that is not living into something where we're actually needing and requiring God to accomplish something bigger.
Yes.
We start to just settle into something that God has already given us enough to do. And so I'm trying to really reflect on how can I lean into the brokenness, recognize even in where I'm already equipped, that it's only because of God's gifts.
Right.
And then just pray, God, how can you use me?
Right.
Where I need you. Like I can't accomplish this on my own. Like I'm going to need you.
Use me where I need you. That is write that down somewhere, Greg. That's something you need to read regularly, because that is a big deal. And it will also remind you to be careful to not, because it's one of my tendencies is I can pray that prayer, but then I can go back out and act as though, even though I've prayed that prayer fervently, God, use me where I need you. I will go and act and perform and do in ways where I'm still leaning a lot on me. That I'm not, and that's one of those things. Again, we could spend a lot of time on that, but that daily, what does it look like to regularly and daily and even minute by minute surrender? It's a journey. And we're not going to always get it right, but it's always coming back to that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep.
So there's a lot of different ways that we could continue to go, but I think, we got a pretty rounded picture from this conversation. So for anyone at home listening to this, watching this, who wants to start a biblical foundation of generosity, with NCF, where should they start? What does that look like if they want to connect with you and your team, or if they're across the country?
Yeah, that's a great.
How can they get involved?
Connected? It is so easy. They can simply go to NCF Carolinas, go to ncfgiving.com. And when they first get there, then they can find on our website our locations. And everywhere there's a location that we point to, there's a way to connect with a local office. And that's how easy it is. So ncfgiving.com, and then go look for our locations and then connect with a local office. And obviously, if you're here, do that same thing and it'll take you to, or you can go directly to ncfgiving.com/Carolinas.
Okay.
And you'll see our office location. You'll see our emails and our numbers, and we're right there. You'll even get to see our pictures.
Perfect. That's great. Well, Richard, I've really appreciated this conversation.
And I have too, Greg. Thank you. I'm honored to be here with you today.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, watching this, my challenge to you is that you would continue to search your heart and pray. I can't remember which psalm it is, but there's a psalm that says, "Search my heart, Lord, and know me." And I just encourage you to search your hearts around generosity, search your hearts around comfort.
Amen.
That's one of the biggest things I see in American Christianity right now, is still this longing for comfort. But when we think of verses like Philippians 1:21, the first verse I ever memorized, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And think of verses about picking up your cross and following Jesus. Those are outside of comfort.
Yeah,
and so
not comfort there.
Take
Except
the time.
what we find in him.
Yes, absolutely. And and just go out this week, find your joy and peace in him, lay it all down before him, because he is good, he is faithful, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.